Let me start this episode with something that might sound a little strange coming from someone who runs a company that provides virtual assistants. Sometimes you should not hire a virtual assistant. Now, if you listened to the last episode, you heard how hiring a virtual assistant completely transformed my business as a real estate agent. It helped me rebuild a business from scratch in a new city and eventually grow it into a real estate team doing about $27 million in annual volume. That team, by the way, was a business that I could eventually and did eventually sell. So yes, I absolutely believe in delegation and leverage. But after talking with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners over the years, I've realized something important. Not everyone actually needs help yet. And hiring a virtual assistant when you don't truly need one can actually create more complexity instead of more freedom. So today, we're going to talk about when you should not hire a virtual assistant. Now, if you are just joining this series on the Scale Smart, Grow Fast podcast, quick context. I'm Adrienne Green, co-founder of Workagenics. Normally, my husband Harley hosts this podcast, but for a few episodes, I'm stepping in as a guest host. In this short series, we're talking about how entrepreneurs and business owners free up time and stop spending their days on work that doesn't actually require them. In the first episode, I shared the story of how hiring a virtual assistant changed the trajectory of my business. But today, we're going to talk about the other side of the equation, because knowing when not to hire help is just as important as knowing when you should. One thing I've noticed in the business world is something called shiny object syndrome. You're probably familiar with it. Every year, there's some new thing that everybody says business owners should be doing. Start a podcast, launch a YouTube channel, build a course, hire a VA, use AI to automate everything. And suddenly it feels like every entrepreneur is supposed to follow the same exact playbook. Hiring a virtual assistant has become one of those things. You'll hear advice like just hire a VA, outsource everything, buy back your time, get help immediately. And while delegation can absolutely transform a business and a life, it's not always the right move because hiring help isn't magic. It requires effort. You have to figure out which tasks to delegate. You have to explain how things should be done. You have to communicate clearly, and you have to spend some time getting someone up to speed. If your business doesn't actually need that leverage yet, hiring help can end up creating more moving parts instead of simplifying things. Let me give you a real example. Recently, I had a conversation with a real estate investor who reached out to explore hiring a virtual assistant. We started talking about his business, how many deals he was doing, what his typical week looked like, what his goals were. And as we talked, something became clear pretty quickly. His business was doing exactly what he wanted it to do. He had the lifestyle he wanted. He wasn't overwhelmed. He wasn't buried under work. He wasn't working nights and weekends. Life was actually going really well. So at the end of the conversation, I told him something he probably didn't expect to hear. I said, honestly, I don't think you should hire a virtual assistant right now. And he kind of paused for a moment and was surprised because when someone talks to the founder and owner of a virtual assistant company, they usually expect the answer to be, yeah, you need us. But the truth is, if your business is already supporting the life you want, you might not need additional leverage.
If you're running a growing company and still handling too many operational details yourself, there's a better way forward. The Delegate or Die checklist shows you the exact tasks that drain leadership bandwidth and the simple changes that recover 15 to 30 plus hours a week. Download it free at workagenics.com/scalesmart. Now let's get back to the episode.
And honestly, this is not the first time I've had this conversation because the goal isn't just to help people hire assistants. The goal is to help people build better businesses and better lives. Often that does mean hiring help, but sometimes it means realizing things are actually working the way I want them to, and that's a great place to be. Another thing people don't always talk about is that delegation is a skill that you build over time. The first time that you hire help, you have to learn how to hand off tasks, how to explain your processes, how to communicate expectations, and trust someone else with work you've already handled yourself. That learning curve isn't huge, but it is real. And while at Workagenics, we do offer training and resources to help with that, at the end of the day, as the business owner and entrepreneur, you've got to also do the work. So if your business already fits comfortably within your week and you're not trying to grow it further, there may not be a good reason to introduce that additional layer of work and learning that comes with figuring out how to leverage a virtual assistant. Let me walk through 3 situations when hiring a virtual assistant probably doesn't make sense yet. Number 1, you're happy with the size of your business. Not every entrepreneur wants to build a massive company that's going to go public or get bought out by private equity. Some people intentionally design their business to support the lifestyle they want. If your business is already producing the income you want and the workload feels manageable, you may not need additional help right now. Situation 2. Your schedule already feels balanced. Another important factor is your schedule. If you're finishing work at a reasonable time on most days and you're not constantly feeling rushed, you still have time for your families and your hobbies or personal time, then your current system may already be working well. Hiring help is usually about creating more capacity, but if you already have the capacity you want, you may not need to change anything. 3, your workload fits comfortably into your week. This is kind of related, and it's often the clearest signal whether a virtual assistant is a yes or a no. Many business owners reach a point where there are always more tasks than there are hours in the day. The inbox keeps filling up, operational tasks pile up, and there are projects they know would help the business grow, but they never seem to get to them. And that's when leverage becomes powerful. But if your current responsibilities already fit comfortably into your week, you're able to get everything done that you want to get done for your business, you may not need support yet. In my experience, business owners usually hire help for one of 2 reasons. They want a bigger business or they want a bigger life. Maybe you want to grow the company. Maybe you want to reclaim evenings or weekends. Maybe you want to stop spending half your day inside your inbox. And that's when delegation to a virtual assistant can become incredibly powerful. If you're not sure whether you actually need help yet, one of the best things you can do is a simple time audit. And that's why I created a guide called the Executive Efficiency Blueprint. Inside the guide, there's a simple exercise that helps you track where your time is going and identify what work you could delegate. You can download that guide below in the show notes. And in the next episode of the series, we're going to talk about one of the most common hiring mistakes business owners make. Because when people decide they're ready to hire, their first hire is often the wrong one. They often hire a cold caller, an ISA, a lead generator, and they assume that more leads are going to solve their business problems. But what often happens is the opposite. They just create more work for themselves because now they've got more business to handle. So in the next episode, we'll talk about why an executive assistant is often the best first hire for an entrepreneur or business owner. So be sure wherever you are listening to subscribe so that you can join me again next week for another episode of Scale Smart, Grow Fast, where I'm going to share all about the right first hire. See you then.